Welcome back to Screens and Statutes. I'm fangirling just a tad with today's guest. Her name is Kameron Buckner. She has an amazing story from content creator to attorney, and now she is founder slash entrepreneur for a legal tech platform that's going to revolutionize the creator industry. This platform is going to help creators understand the contracts and the business behind their creativity. And so that's why I brought her on here. That's what this channel is dedicated to, creativity and the legal nuance behind it all. And I'm excited to share this with you. We talk about all things from her career journey, how she found herself in the founder seat, creating this startup, to what she hopes this platform will do for creators and her plans going forward. If you're also a creative and or an entrepreneur, because in my eyes, they're one and the same, I think that this interview will be very helpful and beneficial for you. Kameron is amazing. She has a great story. So I hope you enjoy. Please don't forget to like and subscribe below. And as always, thank you for watching. Hi, Kameron. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, hanging in there. I'm very glad that it's Friday. It's been a crazy week with work and technology, as you know.
Absolutely. Listen, every day is something different, especially with AI.
Amen to that. But I'm excited to have you here to talk about all things creator economy, content, and being an attorney. So, just to start off, you wear a lot of hats. You're an attorney, a content creator, and you are also now a founder, entrepreneur. So, I would just love to get a snapshot of what your journey has been like and how you got here.
Yeah. Okay, where do I start? Every time I get this question, I'm like, how far back should I go? Because it all kind of aligns.
Yeah.
But so in law school, I wasn't the type of person that always wanted to be a lawyer, that knew she wanted to be a lawyer. So I feel like going into law school, it gave me a different perspective where it was like, okay, now what am I going to get into? But as soon as I entered, I thought, okay, I have to do the traditional law thing. I got to get a law firm job. That's what I have to do. So that's what I started to kind of set up my classes like that, set up my network like that. Fast forward to graduating law school, I worked in employment litigation. I really enjoyed it, but during that time, I was also kind of low key helping my fellow colleagues who are content creators as well with their contracts. They were just asking me some questions, very, very simple things. And I'm like, oh my God, like I know the answer now that I've been to law school. And then there was a moment about a year after I was practicing where someone that wasn't a friend was a content creator. And she said, can you review my contract and how much do you charge? And ever
Oh,
since then, I was like, absolutely. So that's what really got me into going from the transition from employment litigation into owning a consulting firm that prioritizes and focuses on bridging the gap between law and the creator economy by helping creators with their contracts, negotiation strategies, and how to just feel more confident when they are in these rooms with brands or on these emails with brands to make sure they're advocating for themselves. So that's what led me there. But even further back from that, I started my YouTube channel in 2014. So that's how I even got into the creator space.
I love that. And I love how it's come full circle for you and you've just followed I was speaking with another person for these interviews and he was in a very similar situation, a founder of Dark Horse Stages where he just saw a need and he just kept going after like how can I help people? How can I like fill this need that people obviously have and I have the skill set to do that. And so I would love to hear like as far as Social Docket goes and what you're building out now, what is your plan for it? Like, what kind of impact do you hope that it'll have on the creators and the creator industry?
Absolutely. So I stopped at the consulting era because my tech era has been my newest venture with everything really going back to the root of why I started consulting creators back in 2020. I've been doing this for now 5 years, licensed for over 6 years, and realizing, okay, I want to bridge the gap between law and the creator economy. Okay, great. That's fine. That's dandy. But I'm one person, and now we have AI. AI has gotten better. It's not perfect. So my thought was, okay, how can I use more modern tech to be able to do this even faster, more efficiently, more effectively? And reach more creators all at once and allow all of them to have access to me, how I've been working with hundreds of creators with helping them with their contracts. So last year I started Social Docket, and Social Docket is an AI powered platform to provide modern legal and business tools for the creator economy. When we think of lawyers, a lot of us don't like them. Understandable. I don't like half of us either, but
Same.
times are changing. And I want to be able to be right there in the middle to grab the hands of my fellow creators and put them in the right hands of lawyers. So to actually bridge the gap even further, and technology is the fastest, most efficient way to do that. So we're starting with an AI contract analyzer to help you not just with your red lines, but also help you negotiate and understand what you're signing, why you're signing it, while also offering them the ability to get accessible legal education. Because some things it's like, why is it hidden? Let's tell them so then us as attorneys, we can focus on the more complex issues And then when the clients come to us, they're more educated and they know the right terms. So then we all can work more efficiently.
I like that because I feel like, attorneys, lawyering historically has a history of gatekeeping.
Yes.
And the fact that, like, I think there's still this mindset of, for some reason, it freaks some attorneys out to, like, educate, their clients and kind
Yeah.
of not just do the work for them, but let them know, like, hey, like, this is what you should understand about this industry you work in or this contract you're signing. So I personally appreciate hearing you, tackle this head on with Social Docket. I am curious to get your thoughts on bringing in AI because every day it's changing. There's so many different layers to it. As an attorney, like it's difficult because on the one hand, especially as a new attorney, I want to learn how to do things, right? But I also want to be efficient. And so what are
Mm.
your thoughts on bringing in AI into this tool and then on a bigger picture just in the grand scheme of things, like what are your thoughts on attorneys using AI?
Ooh, excellent questions. I think there's so much hesitation with anything that's new. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, in our profession as lawyers, it's an extreme hesitation. We're just
Yes.
naturally leaning more on like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's not reinvent the wheel. All the terms all of our professors would tell us, like that first year of law school, we're all like primed and primed for that. But I think it goes to show that there's so much more room for innovation, which is exciting. It's exciting. But I think when we think of AI, we're thinking way too deep into it. Yes, it's pretty deep, it's pretty complex, and it's fast. But I think when I talk to lawyers that are like, "Oh, hesitant," I'm like, "Think about Google. We just
Yeah.
Google things like, what is this or where is this or what's that recipe again?" So that's how I think we should start to think about AI as a tool to help aid in what we do. And even more specific, recently I was talking to another lawyer and she was like, "Break it down to me where I can actually understand." I said, "Okay. Well, first year of school, we had outlines. I don't know about y'all, but I used outlines when I was studying and they were so amazing. And that's what AI does. AI allows us to have an outline versus starting from an empty page. So
Mm,
it's going to always be something we need to research and we need to add on to and add that human touch to it. It's not going to be perfect on its own, but learning how to guide it into a better outline and add on to it is going to just put us way ahead and faster. So I think lawyers should be open to it. Use it in your personal life first, get used to prompting. The key to AI, especially for something like more of like an open AI or like a ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, etc., is going to be how you prompt it. So really learning how to prompt it and get the outcome that you're looking for is going to be important. And then we have like LexisNexis that has like co-counsel and Westlaw. Dive into those resources. They're getting better and better. And
yes.
who doesn't want to save a little bit of time so I can work with more clients? It's not reducing your hourly. It's allowing you to meet your hourly requirements if that's something that you're doing, but work with more clients. And that's just going to look better for everybody.
Yeah, I have really been loving I primarily use LexisNexis, and I've been loving starting there, just cutting down on the search time. And then because I prompt it as best as I can. I think I'm doing okay, but I definitely need to look into that more after this discussion. And then it just cuts down on like trying to find the source that I'm looking for because then I can go through and verify. But I do appreciate it very much for the ability to cut down on just searching for things. In terms of other industries that are changing really rapidly, the creator industry, which I know like that this is your wheelhouse, what kind of big changes do you foresee coming up or maybe they're already happening?
Yeah, I think with the creator economy, of course, I'm gonna say I see more businesses that are more traditional getting involved in the creator economy. So me as a lawyer building a legal infrastructure for the economy that's more modern, that's needed. I think that is something we're gonna see more business tools elevating in the creator economy, understanding that this is not just influencers taking photos anymore. It never was that, but it's really becoming understood across various different sectors. I see more industries like tax professionals, lawyers, business experts, things realizing, oh, there's a need here and there's not really a solid standard and there's really room for innovation. I see more people getting involved with this, which is needed because creators are becoming one of the most sought after entrepreneurs, whether it's like now as a founder, whether it's founders hiring influencers to really get their product out or their service out. So they have a different leverage, just having an audience and having an ear to a
Yeah.
specific market that no one else really has and businesses would love. Like any business, whether brick and mortar or not, if they could every day talk to 10,000 of their direct clients that they desire to work with, what a dream. Influencers have that. So
Yeah.
finding ways to help aid those creators and influencers to make sure that, hey, their entity is set up correctly, their taxes are filed properly, their legal documents are all in alignment, their contracts are right, their trademarks, their intellectual property, etc. Which is why even with what we're building, I tell people all the time, we're not replacing lawyers. We're here to provide the resources and the tools so that y'all can speak the same language, because there's still going to be complexities like specific trademarks. AI can't replace everything. I'm sorry. AI is not going to
Right.
trial, whatever. Y'all can build the robots, etc. But at the end of the day, we're going to need lawyers. And we're going to need tax professionals. We're going to need the people, but being able to understand the language of whatever industry and hear with the creator economy is going to put you at an advantage.
I'm interested to know if you're aware of any, like from a legal perspective, policy perspective, of any changes that might be coming for creators now that they're becoming more of a, I guess, standard, much more common career that people are seeking after these days.
I think
Yeah.
no matter where you stand on different things, I think the fact that it's being talked about at that level, it shows the importance. Also, I mean, nowadays you survey students like in the high school, middle school level, you ask them what they want to be. A lot of them are saying YouTubers, influencers, creators. So that's an indicator that one, we need to start setting up educational tools for them to succeed, and knowledge so they can succeed. And then also policies. So as far as policies, I don't know any in particular off the top of my head, besides a lot of focus on, of course, children. I think that's always going to be something that's important, especially when we're talking about like privacy policies, data privacy, cybersecurity, protecting children on the internet. I think that's important because they may even be the first group where we see a ton of litigation later. I always say this anticipation of all the child's influencers are going to grow up and sue their parents. I don't know, but we'll see.
Yep.
In some capacity, if they haven't been saving money for them, because we see child actors and they still had problems. So
Yeah.
it's different, but it's the same. So I anticipate more policies around AI, but I also think they're gonna get it wrong before they get it right, and I hate to
Yeah.
say that, but I think it's just because there's a knowledge gap.
Yeah. Well, and there was a discussion I had. His name's John, who works at the Beer Law Center. He had a very similar take on that because, like, with AI changing so quickly, in his experience, it's like, okay, we can make a law really quickly, but it's probably not going to be nuanced enough. And so,
It's
therefore,
not.
there's going to be mistakes. But if we take too long to do something, that is in and of itself not an ideal scenario. And
And by
so,
the time they do it, it's
you're
late.
just, you don't. Yeah.
Terrible.
But your comment about, like, it being analogous, it being like, content creation in children and just the various layers to that, it makes me think of Alison Stoner. I know in her book recently, she did an interview where, she was on the Disney Channel growing up,
Mhm.
and one day one of her purchases bounced back, and she realized that, her family or someone close to her in her life had been not taking care of her funds the way that they should have been taken care of. For children content creators, I really do think that's gonna be a big area that I just feel like it's bound to happen. There's gonna be some sort of policy there because 'cause we've already seen it in some ways, with child actors.
Exactly. So I think as far as when I think of like people that are in the positions that are making these policies, that probably feels like a great barrier of entry into starting policy because it's a little bit more known and like understandable. But at the end of the day, they're gonna have to lean on some younger lawyers, some younger colleagues, honestly creators. When I'm doing research on this, me and my team, we're not even really going to a ton of like legal platforms because law is so far behind. We're leaning on the marketing experts. We're leaning on creators and influencers. And I think once lawyers can put aside that, like we were saying, like let's remove this guardrail, this secrecy, let's do this and open up the floodgates to opening education to other areas. That's when we're going to actually implement policy that makes sense. Similar to how if we want to zealously advocate for our clients and we aren't aware of the industry, how can we do that? I always say like the best personal injury attorney has been in a car accident of some sort because they know what it feels like. They can empathize and they can meet their clients right there. So the best creator attorneys, the creator economy, influencer lawyer, whatever you want to call them, is going to be the ones that are creating content. If you aren't creating content and you don't know how to log into your social media, how many policies can you really create? How can you advocate for the creators? How can you have those conversations? So that's why I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I think now we're seeing more politicians and legislators and honestly anyone online. And I love to see it. Like just create, get on there and get familiar with how it feels to create. Cause then you're going to understand here are the gaps when it comes to creating the content. Here's the confusion when it comes to where's the IP beginning and ending with digital. Where does AI fit in with all this? Can I get a trademark on this? Can I get a copyright on this? And things of that nature.
That's great. I really love that take because, again, it goes back to that very antiquated thinking from attorneys where, like, you can only be an attorney. You have to, like, yes, we should know the law really well, but it's also okay to have like a broad industry,
Yeah.
understanding of what you're working in. Because as you said very eloquently, like, if you don't know what's happening in the industry that you're primarily working in, how are you helping your clients? And speaking of clients, I would love to know, when it comes to creators and what you're trying to solve with the social docket, what are some common mistakes or maybe just topics that not even mistakes, maybe the creators just aren't aware? What are the top 3 things that you see them kind of do, in terms of mistakes or not knowing things?
Yeah, I would say there's a ton, of course.
Yeah.
And I don't blame anybody on either side. There's just not a lot of education, but I would say not knowing the importance of thoroughly reading the contract. You can read it and say, "Oh, this word probably doesn't matter," and that's probably the exact word that's going to be an issue. And with that, I'd say searching for the definition of terms. Like,
Mhm.
okay, I can search Google, I can ask ChatGPT, what does perpetuity mean? And now it means forever. Great, I can sign the contract, whatever. Until you're like one of my clients, this is a story I tell all the time. You're driving down the street, you see your face on a billboard, but you can't pay your rent. Why? Because you gave usage rights in perpetuity. So they
Yep.
can use your content anywhere, every year, all year round, and they don't have to pay you a cent more. Absolutely not. So if you would have known more than just a definition, but educated on the outcome, you probably would have negotiated it. So that's pretty much exactly our purpose and our platform and our stance is if we can give you the right education and the right tools, you're not going to make those type of mistakes. Or if you are, you at least know that you made it and why you made it. So because people are going to make their own choices. But I think educating creators on like, no, like you hold the value. There would be no $250 billion creator economy without creators. And Goldman Sachs just said it's going to go up to 480 billion plus by 2027. So it wouldn't, creators are the foundation and they really hold the leverage, even though it feels like we don't have a lot to say. We're not protected by lawyers like businesses and brand, but it's like, okay, great. You don't feel like that. Let me give you the education so you can advocate for yourself. Then also give you the directory of lawyers where you can also get contacted with people that care.
Well, and that goes to a follow-up question I just thought of as you were speaking on that point, particularly about creators not feeling like maybe they don't have leverage when it comes
Yeah.
to signing a contract. So like let's say, that client they see the perpetuity word and they want to go back and say like let's negotiate, let's talk about this further. What would be your guidance to someone in that situation? Like, how do they handle that if they feel as if they don't have leverage to ask for that?
Yeah, yeah. Use Social Docket. No, but seriously, I think it's one of those things, the more educated you are on something, the more confident you are. So I think that would just help knowing
Yeah.
why you're asking for it. Because sometimes you're like, "Ah, this doesn't feel right, but I don't know why, so, like, forget it." But if I
Mm.
knew, like, I don't wanna be driving down the street and see my face on a billboard and I can't pay my rent, I probably am gonna ask some questions. But even just taking outside of that and taking out of, like, the self-promo of a Social Docket, but asking the brand questions. It's a
Yeah.
partnership. Creators need to realize that the brand came to you or you came to the brand, content won't get created without a content creator. That's just what it is. So ask the questions. It doesn't have to feel like this scary back and forth. Even when I'm advocating for creators and I'm helping them with negotiating, I tell them mutual is the goal. How can we get this to mutual at the very least?
Mhm.
And then of course there's a few things I want you to be empowered about and then you to get the leverage on. But any healthy negotiation, everybody's leaving with something. I'm gonna come in with some desires. I know I'm not gonna leave with everything I want and vice versa. So letting them know that it's gonna feel like you left something, but you also need to feel like you gained something. So
Mhm.
asking the questions, going into it as a partnership, a healthy partnership. It shouldn't be rude. It shouldn't be disrespectful. You don't win by being rude.
Right.
It doesn't make you a better negotiator if you're disrespectful. Honestly, kindness is always going to lead because it's an ongoing partnership. You don't know who they know and who they know. So always leading with or authenticity of like, I have no idea. I'm not sure. Help me with this. What does this mean? What is this outcome is going to be? Is where I would begin.
Yeah, and then that makes me think growing up, my mom always said, "Ask the question," because the worst someone can say is no. You don't get what you
Yeah,
asked for, and then the cards are on the table and you just go from there. So that's
absolutely.
really great perspective and reminder. And to my last question that I ask everyone that I interview, in a world obsessed with disruption, what do you think we should preserve?
Oh, this is such a great question.
Thank
As
you.
someone who is disrupting the legal profession, the creator economy, I feel like I think at the end of the day, something that should remain are building healthy relationships.
Mm,
Kind of like I was just talking about, I think you can disrupt and not be hostile. It's just
yeah.
not neat. And a lot of times that's not the intent. So remembering that AI, all this stuff is great, but relationships still matter. The relationships are at the root and the foundation of really any purposeful outcome, whether that's something that's personal or whether that's business. Remember that at the end of the day, we're all just humans. We're all just people striving for different goals, having different dreams, and relax, build a relationship.
I really love that answer. It makes me it the first thought I had was, there seems to be a divide between a lot of the big founders that are now like the billionaires of the world, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, like, 5, 10 years ago, they felt more like us, if you will. And now there's this big divide. And I just wonder, going to your point about like, don't forget the relationships, if that is what happened. They forgot, like, you're dealing with
Mhm.
humans everywhere you work, your coworkers, your clients. And so very good reminder. Thank you for that. Cause I think
Of
that
course.
it's often forgotten by big businesses these days.
So true. I'll even counter that. I feel like maybe they have kept those relationships, they're just not with
Mm,
us. Like, you never
yes,
know. You never know where there's still a connect. Maybe Elon still calls a childhood best friend and be like, "Listen, society thinks this, but we're still laughing at the pool table." You never know.
yeah,
Don't know him personally, but that's
right.
what I would hope. I would hope that some of the big dogs, as a dreamer to become one of the big dogs, that at the end of the day, even if society may, it feels like there's a disconnect because of whatever the standards, whatever the naysayers or whatever's happening, that there's gonna be still a root to everything. Every tree can
Mhm.
grow and branch off, but there's a root that remains. So I would hope that, and I think it always is relationships.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you for this, and I hope we can stay in touch and have you back on and get updates on Social Docket.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.